The Mura effect, best accessories, button sound test, and the most important things to know while you wait for your Thor to arrive. Grab a drink, get comfy, and let's take a proper first look at the AYN Thor. So, it's finally here. Sorry about my voice, I'm a little bit sick today, but, well, AYN Thor has arrived. We are going to quickly unbox it and check it out. I know that I'm a little bit late on this, but believe me, waiting for it to arrive wasn't easy. 2 months and 11 days, I believe, was how long I waited to be able to finally put my hands on this. So let's just not waste any more time. I know that by now you've probably watched like 1,000 videos on the Thor already, but yeah, what can you do? It's reasonably well protected, as you can see here. Then we've got the TPU shell, which I've ordered separately. And here is the Thor itself. Let's just quickly get it out. I've ordered the Thor Max, the version with 16 GB of RAM and 512 GB of storage, the black version. So that's it. Let's just quickly get this open. The first thing we've got here in a little envelope is what I believe to be the specs card, and we've got all the models listed here. The second one is safety tips. You know the drill. It's like don't poke it, don't puncture it, don't put it into a fire. And the third one is just the controls layout here, and on the other side we've got the very same in Chinese. You can see the small magnets here. There is a foam protection layer here, so let me just lift it up. And we've got the device here. It looks like our Thor was quality checked in the exact same month it was shipped out, so that's great. We've got a small box here. There is a charging cable, got the AYN logo here. And now let's get the Thor out. Yep. Yep, there it is. My very first impression is that it's reasonably heavy. We've got the logo here, we've got the fan here. Let's just open it for the very first time. And yeah, a little surprise, there's a little protective element here as well, this little foam protector. And I'll say this, it looks very sleek and it's just as reflective as I expected it to be. I think you can even see me in the screen once I open it like this. Hello, hi. Yeah, it's very reflective. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much as I thought it would, at least for now. Well, if it does bother you, then there are some matte screen protectors for it, but I personally don't really feel the need to install one, as they tend to somewhat mess up the image quality on the displays. The whole panel here is glass, so there is a uniform glass panel over the bottom display and over the controls section. There is no gap here, no additional border. Sorry for the lights reflecting here, but it can give you a better idea, I think, of, how the all glass surface on the front here works. And also, this is going to be a real fingerprint magnet, I can already tell, because when you pair my sweaty hands with the all glass front panel of the device, it can get a little bit messy, and it will, so be prepared for that. So yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the controls and how they sound. They feel pretty standard. I think they're reasonably good quality. The D-pad does remind me of the PlayStation Vita D-pad. The analog sticks feel great here. And also, despite many people saying that this device isn't really that, ergonomic, with my smaller hands, I really do think that this is a little bit overblown. I of course haven't yet tested it during longer gaming sessions, so this will be covered in my full review of the Thor once I do all my tests and customize the device. I love how it's focusing directly on me instead of the buttons here. That's gonna be a problem. Come on. Okay, we'll figure this out. So the first thing I think you want to see is the analog sticks and the buttons and how far do they stick out here. I think I will be able to show this to you by just showing you this from this angle and then closing the Thor. Here it looks like they, just as intended, don't touch the screen. I squeeze this just a little bit. Yeah, the D-pad seems to be pretty close, but I still think it's within the safety margin if you just don't put too much pressure on it. Then let's get to the front view here, and then let's take a closer look at the gap in the front, which many people seem to be anxious about. So when I do this, and note that I have to do this with a reasonable amount of force, it's not like I'm doing this with ease. If I were just to rest my fingers like that or tap them, it wouldn't really move. So I have to really press down here for the lid to really start closing this gap. So I think that's alright, especially considering that the TPU case that we're going to use in a while will close this gap even further. In front we've got the power button, which isn't really recessed, the volume rocker here, the audio jack, the TF card slot, it opens just like that, it's protected like this. Of course there is no seal here, as this device isn't waterproof or even water resistant, and the slot looks like this. And here we've got the USB-C charging port, and the last thing we've got is the lanyard slot here on the left, and the lanyard is not included in the set, unlike with the RG Rotate, but you can of course purchase a simple lanyard from pretty much anywhere or get the official one from AYN themselves. On the top we've got the shoulder buttons. These are pretty clicky, as you've already heard. And the triggers, which are analog triggers, which I've also heard many people complain about. I will of course have a little bit more to say about them once I test them in-game. So take a look at the travel here. It's not much, but I think it's manageable in most games. On the left side we have nothing, and on the right side we've got also nothing, and finally on the back we've got the fan here. We can take a closer look at that from the outside. We can see the fins here. Here are the screw holes, which you can use to remove the backplate, and the AYN logo. So that's pretty much it. The hinge does feel pretty solid. You can lock it in place here, then here, and then you can extend it fully like this. It feels pretty solid. It of course won't extend anymore here, but it also doesn't feel like it will easily break. Of course, if I would use a little bit more force, it could, but it doesn't feel like it would break easily. And then of course it's important to mention that it won't lock in the 90-degree position like this. Sadly, I don't have a DS right now for comparison, but look what I found. This is a true relic. Some of you might probably recognize this. This is GPD-XD, which I strongly believe to be the very first handheld I ever owned. Its shell is a little bit smaller, as you can see here. It's not smaller by a lot, but if I show it to you like this, you can see the difference. There is also a significant difference in thickness here. And would you look at this? It's a micro USB port and a micro HDMI port. By the way, of course, Thor can also do direct video output, but via its USB-C port. But why exactly I brought this out is because of the hinge. Just take a look at this. This really was so slick back in the day. I guess you could compare it to these days. What is it called? It's that Retroid device, the Retroid Flip. If I recall correctly, it's built in a very similar way. But yeah, this one is very ancient. It runs, I believe, Android 8, if I'm not mistaken. While it's still good for basic retro emulation, it's not really a viable Android handheld these days. But enough of that, it's not the time for you to steal the spotlight now. What I was about to say is that the GPD-XD can lock into the 90 degrees position. Well, almost, because the hinge on the GPD-XD is, or rather was, much less tight than it is on the brand new Thor. And yeah, this one also had 3 positions in which you could lock the screen. Like so. That's enough from you. Let's take you back to the retirement home. If you close the door, it makes that little click sound, as you can hear. As this is just the top part of the display here, hitting these small things here. I think this is rubber, actually. And yeah, it's a little bit of protection, but I still wouldn't just slam it closed every time, because, you know, better safe than sorry. Coming back to here, we can appreciate the top display even when it's off, because this AMOLED screen is just perfectly hidden in here. To just show you the borders, I really need to position it in a way so that it reflects some light. But when it's positioned like this, it's really like melted into the whole shell, which is a very nice effect to have. Of course, this will be an effect that you will notice mostly on the all black model. So the top display is a little bit more hidden, and the bottom one is, well, its borders are visible, but then again, not by a lot. We have a very small hole here, the front microphone. These buttons on top are the start and select buttons, and these buttons on the bottom here are the home and back buttons, so the Android system buttons. And on the very bottom here, we've got the AYN button, which is going to open the special AYN menu, and while pressed and held down, it will disable the bottom display. And then the last part I want to show you are the front-facing speakers here. We've got stereo speakers here, the left one and the right one. It's great to have those, because many consoles, once again, like the RG Rotate I just recently got, have bottom firing speakers, which are really not that great to use. And I just remembered something. Many people online are mentioning the small marks on the hinges on the devices they get, which are considered to be either actual hinge damage or, more often, as I've heard, the factory mold markings. I don't think we've got any of this, at least when I'm looking at it like this, here and here. There doesn't seem to be any trouble here. Now you can see what the setup looks like. Don't worry about this. This is not screen damage. This is just the anti-image retention mode that has kicked in and I've stopped it. And now I cannot really get rid of this until it kicks in again. You can turn this option off in the settings, but by default it's going to do that every once in a while to just prevent any screen burning. There it goes again, as you can see. And if I just click here, it's gonna go away, but I guess in the setup mode here, it just poses like this, as the bottom screen has nothing to display. Let's just get through the setup. We've got English selected, that's great. And then we need to connect to the Wi-Fi. Then we need to select our time zone. And the next step is to select our launcher. And our choices here are either the AOSP launcher, which is kind of the default Android launcher, or the Thor launcher. I, for now, will select the default one. We got the gesture or the 3-button navigation to select from. Of course, you can change all of this later. We have completed the configuration and then we are straight in the main launcher, just like that. Let me just, for the sake of the better first experience with the top screen, move to the 120 FPS mode. Of course, you probably know this by now, but while the top screen is in the 120 FPS mode, the bottom screen will experience some screen tearing, which of course I won't be able to show you now in the menu, but it is visible in games. So if you don't want screen tearing on the bottom display, then you want to keep the top display in the 60 Hz mode. At least that's how it works for now. Take a look at how fast it unlocks when opened. Reasonable. And now let's quickly talk about the thing that I know many of you are very anxious about, and the thing I've already written about in my pre-buyer's guide for the AYN Thor, and that is the Mura effect. If you don't already know, the name for this effect comes from the Japanese word Mura, one of its meanings being uneven. Well, OLED displays and some LCD displays, but that's another topic, have, let's just say, an innate problem with uneven color representation, especially when it comes to gray backgrounds with very low brightness settings. This is a problem with most devices featuring OLED displays, and it was very prevalent in the original PS Vita, as you can see here, but it's also a known issue with the Steam Deck OLED, as you can see here. Will you always get the Mura? Well, unfortunately, it's kind of a lottery. It really depends on the whole production process and how the things lined up when the displays were made. With cheaper displays like this, there will always be a chance of encountering some rather unpleasant Mura, but then again, no OLED screen is really completely free from this effect. You will be able to spot Mura with the naked eye only in very specific conditions. The first condition is the display has to be displaying a gray background. It cannot be a completely black background, because completely black background on OLED displays is just no light at all, no pixels activated. The second condition is that the screen has to be set to a very dim brightness setting. And the third condition is that your surroundings have to be very dark or very dim too. So this issue is kind of like when you see it, you start to notice it, and it might or might not bother you. But if you haven't really known about it, you might not even notice it until, say, you're playing very late at night in your bed and then you see, well, something seems to be wrong with my screen. And then again, Mura is present on pretty much every OLED display out there, just with varying levels of severity. So tests like this just require you to put the brightness level down to the lowest setting, then start the test, and then just carefully look at the screen in the dark, starting from the 1% gray setting, and then going up all the way to usually 50% gray setting. Before I recorded this part of the video, I've already done the tests on this device. And the results? Well, due to the fact that the Mura wouldn't really be visible here in the studio lights, I took some pictures for you. Well, keep in mind that the pictures you can see here are taken specifically to emphasize the Mura effect, so you can actually see it. In practice, I of course won't lie to you that it isn't visible at all, but it's way less pronounced than it is on the images here. These images were taken with very high ISO values and very low shutter speed, so that you can actually see what's going on with the display. But if you were, let's just say, playing in a dimly lit room, this won't be visible half as much. If you want another set of examples from the Thor and you don't want to just look at my device, I've compiled for you a few cases of Mura on the Thor taken from the AYN Discord. Once again, do not panic. This effect will be visible to some extent on pretty much all OLED displays, and second of all, these images make it look, I would say, like 50% more pronounced than it is in reality. So if you're still anxious about that, then I would say just be prepared for it. On the other hand, if you see this and you go like, I couldn't possibly live with something like this, then there is one thing you can do here, and that is the built-in mode that is meant specifically to combat Mura. You need to go to the Thor settings here, and then scroll down to what is called the OLED Ultra Black mode. When you flip this switch, you will notice that the colors on the display change a little bit. So the white won't be white anymore, the colors on the display will change a bit and you will have a little bit less contrast overall. But then in turn, believe me, this will almost completely get rid of the Mura. And here you can see the before and after photos taken with this mode completely off on the top and then with this mode on the bottom. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the Mura. You can decide by yourself if it's something that you can live with or not, and keep in mind that it is kind of a lottery in the end, so unfortunately it's not really like you have a lot of control over it. Here is a very quick charging test. I'm using a generic 67 watts Xiaomi charger here, and we can see that the Thor pulls in steady 25 watts. By the way, this is a very useful thing to have on hand. It can also display graphs, as you can see here. There are a few views you can access. You can see the protocol that the charger uses, which in this case is Power Delivery 3.0. You can see the max wattage, the minimum wattage, the temperature of the sensor, and then you have a lot of different options here as well. This will show you all the parameters, and this will show you exactly how much power your device draws, directly at the source. Check it out, I can just plug it in to an R36S. The LED does tell us that it has started charging, but here we can see much more info, and we can see that it safely pulls about 6 watts without any risk of damaging the device, despite this being a fast charger. Again, a great thing to have. While we are still talking about the accessories here, I just wanted to share with you a perfect case I found for the Thor, and that is this UGREEN case. This one is great not only because, as you will see in a second, the Thor fits perfectly inside here, but also because it's popular enough to be available pretty much everywhere, including Amazon and AliExpress. And it's also very affordable too. The Thor sits perfectly in here. We have that small thing here that we can freely adjust to give it a little bit more or less space, like this. So it's really safe in here. Then we have this sort of divider in here, which protects the top of the handheld when this is closed. And not only that, we have 2 additional pockets here. And if you absolutely don't want to risk scratching the top of the Thor, you can very safely use this pocket here for some of your accessories, because this, as you can see, is reasonably thick. And you also have this compartment here, which is very spacious, as you can see, and it's completely separated from the part that the handheld resides in. So I think this is pretty much ideal for the Thor. And then if you really want your console to be safe, then let me just assure you that this is extremely sturdy. I'm using quite a lot of force here. Yeah, I would easily trust this to just throw it into my backpack and not worry about the Thor getting damaged inside. And not only that, but it's got a handle here. It's kind of like a fake leather, and a carabiner attachment here. So as always, I will leave the link to this in the description below, and you can check it out. Now let's just get the Thor out. The very last accessory that I will shamelessly promote here is this. This little guy is much more useful than you think. You use it like this, and yeah, it might be more useful on your smartphone, which spends a bit more time in your pocket than your pocket handheld. But I feel like with time, if I decide to carry my Thor in my larger pocket a little bit more, then this can prevent all the dirt and all the lint from getting into the USB-C port and clogging it, which is always a pain to deal with once it happens. Luckily, the set that I got also came with cleaning tools, so if, for example, the port in your smartphone is already in a not so good state, then this can also help you. So that's that. It's a small addition, but I still use it on many of my mobile devices. I'll be also sure to test out the dock I've got here. I originally got this for my Steam Deck. This is a budget solution. I got this one, I believe, from AliExpress, but it's also available on Amazon. And I will try using it with the Thor as well, so we will see how that goes. So next up, here we've got the TPU shell. Let me just quickly show you what it looks like. It comes in 2 separate pieces. There is a lot of foam here, I can already tell. Yeah. And we've got the piece for the bottom. It's not a hard plastic shell, it's a TPU shell, so it's gonna do this, and it's gonna be very much flexible. And to apply it, we just simply need to do this. And it slides on just like that. It does sit pretty tight in here, so that's the top part. It looks like this. You can easily put, whatever you want under here. So for example, a cutout image or anything really. And the bottom part is applied like this, and that's pretty much it. This, as we've already established, closes the gap here in the front, and even if I press on the right and left side, essentially nothing happens because there is no free space for the screen to bend. And a word of warning, of course, this is also a fingerprint magnet, so you're gonna find yourself doing this with whatever you have on hand pretty often to just get rid of all of the fingerprints. But other than that, it looks pretty good. You can do some basic customization here, which is also nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it about the case. So with that said, thank you for watching, thank you for enduring all of my yapping, and let's just hope that my experience with the Thor will be as great as it was up to this point. If you liked this video and you want to see more content like this, please do like, comment or subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!